So before we begin our raglan shaping, it is probably a week from the last time I talked to you. Anyway, before we begin our raglan shaping, I thought I would kind of like walk you through the steps of it so that we have a sort of idea in mind of where we are headed. So at the moment, we have the torso, right? And I couldn't pin it because my mannequin is like hard plastic in the back, so no pinning to it. But I'm just holding it up so you can see. Her hips are around here. That's where the slope of the hip starts. So we have our torso and we have our two sleeves. How are we going to join these together to keep working in the round? Well, we are going to determine the sides of our garment. And in this case, it's particularly easy to see because I'm going to raise it up. I left a slit, so I know those two slits are going to be on either side. Now, the torso is here, so that means one of our sleeves is going to go here, and the other sleeve is going to go on the other side. So this is what it's going to look like. Now, in order to do so, we're going to need to attach a portion of the stitches of the sleeve to a portion of the stitches of our body. And in order to determine those number of stitches, we are going to measure our underarm area. So I mostly just do that holding it right to myself against a mirror. So typically I will do about 4 inches is the span of my underarm. I know you can't see it, so we're moving here. This typically 4 inches, right? This is our back shoulder. This is our front shoulder. So for the 33-inch bust, this is typically how much I would leave for my underarm. So if I've already done my gauge, I know that that is 16 stitches will equal 4 inches. So I know that I'm going to attach 16 stitches of the torso to 16 stitches of the sleeve. So I'm going to quickly just eyeball this. That's about right. This amount, and what we're going to do is stitch, place stitch markers on either side to hold this in place, but we're not going to be stitching our raglan over the inside of the sleeve. We're going to be stitching it towards this outside part. So what's going to happen is that we're going to be coming around and then going over the sleeve and back that way. Okay, it's going to be much more clear when I'm showing it to you actually working on it, but I just wanted to walk you through that endeavor so that you have an idea of what you're getting into and you can see it completely. It's not just something abstract that I'm trying to explain. Okay, so, and of course you could always just stitch and try it on and see if you need more stitches or if you're comfortable with the way that stitching is gonna go. And then just like in a raglan shaping where we increase at 4 points, so we increase here in the back, here and in the back, that would be 4 points, and we increase 2 stitches in those 4 points. So it's a total of 8 stitches being increased. Well, for the reverse raglan, we are going to decrease in those 4 points instead of increasing. So we're going to do 2 decreases here, 2 decreases here, and then 2 decreases on either side of the back for a total of 8 decreases. And we are going to work those going up and up and up. Okay? So like I demonstrated on the mannequin, we have our front part, we have our back part, and we've attached to 16 stitches of the body, 16 stitches on the sleeve, and the same over here. Now, the other thing to notice is that I haven't completed my last round before I'm gonna insert my sleeves, and that's because when I come working this last round, I'm actually gonna do the join here. Okay, so let's get started. So for now, I'm going to continue doing extended single crochets, and then I'll meet you back here when it is time to join the sleeve. Okay, so I am one stitch before the marker, and if you notice, this marker marks the sleeve, the body stitch and the sleeve stitch we're going to join. So we are not going to work into these two stitches. We're not working into that, which means we're going to work a extended single crochet in this stitch, and then ignoring that stitch, we're just going to come over here and work an extended single crochet as well. Okay, and we've already joined the sleeve and we've connected. Okay, so if you feel like it's better for you to sew these stitches now, you can do so, but I'm gonna leave that till later, and I'm just gonna continue working around the sleeve until I reach the other side. For this first round, I'm not doing a decrease, I'm just joining, and I'm gonna continue, like I said, on the outside of the sleeve, working extended single crochets. And I'll meet you back here on the other side. Okay, okay. So, if we look at our sleeve, I'm one stitch before this marker. So I'm gonna do one last sleeve extended single crochet. This are the two stitches that will be joined. Okay, so I'm gonna go into the next stitch. So what we are doing for the reverse raglan is that we are leaving these stitches blank. We're just gonna sew into those later to seam it shut, okay? And we are working around the outside of the sleeve, okay? So I'm gonna keep working in extended single crochets until I reach my other sleeve. Same thing on this other side. So we're gonna skip the marked stitch, go into the next one, and then just do extended single crochets. And now we're working on the outer part of the sleeve, extended single crochets around, and I will meet you back here when I am on this side. Okay, so this is my other sleeve point. Just going to do that, and now we are simply going to crochet until we are here. As you can see, I'm approaching where I joined, right? This is the last body stitch. This is my first sleeve stitch. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to crochet. I'm going to crochet to one stitch before this body stitch, and I am going to do a decrease. Now, because I want these decreases to pop out a little bit, I'm actually just going to be doing a normal single crochet decrease, and I'm going to be placing a stitch marker. And now we have our first sleeve stitch. So I'm going to be repeating the decrease. Okay, So I've decreased 2 stitches, and if you want to place a marker on both of these, you go ahead. I'm not going to. And now I'm going to continue in extended single crochets until I am 1 stitch away from my next sleeve stitch, which would be here. So I'll meet you back here. We are 1 stitch before this sleeve stitch here. So again, I'm just going to do a single crochet decrease because I want the stitches to pop out a little bit, but you could of course just do an invisible decrease. So that's my first decrease, and then my next decrease is going to be over that body stitch. So there we go. So if you want to put a stitch marker to just mark, go ahead and do that. And now I'm just going to do extended single crochets, extended single crochets until I reach the other join, where I'm going to repeat the process of doing decrease over these 2 stitches and over these 2 stitches. I'm going to crochet to 1 stitch before this body stitch, and I am going to do a decrease. Now, because I want these decreases to pop out a little bit, I'm actually just going to be doing a normal single crochet decrease, and I'm going to be placing a stitch marker. And now we have our first sleeve stitch. So I'm going to be repeating the decrease.
So now that we've completed our first decrease,
stitches, and if you want to place a marker on both
and continue
of these,
working
go
on the
ahead.
outside of the sleeve
I'm
with
not going to.
extended single
And now
crochets.
I'm going to continue in extended single crochets until I am
then we will do 2 decreases,
stitch
and
away
this will have completed 2 decreases for this round. So just
sleeve
remember that because it's a
stitch,
raglan,
which would
we
be
are decreasing at the
here.
shoulder points
So I'll meet
for
you
a total
back
of 8
here.
decreases.
Okay, hi, it's tomorrow. So it's the day after I shared with you how to join your sleeves to the body. The reason I stand in front of you again is because I wanted to now discuss what's going to happen with the raglan decreases. So the thing to keep in mind is how many rounds your yoke is going to be. And we determine that by deciding on our armhole depth. The armhole depth is this part here. Okay, so if you have a pre-made sweater, which is potentially what you're using to kind of like base this sweater pattern on, then you're just going to measure that armhole depth. Traditionally, that'll go anywhere between 7.5 to 10 inches, depending on the size of the garment that you're making or how oversized the garment is. Such things, that is to your, that is for you to decide. I've decided that my armhole depth is going to be 8.5 inches. So once I've decided on that number, what I need to do is multiply the row gauge or the round gauge by my armhole depth. So in my case, that would be 4.5 inches. 4.5 rounds in 1 inch. Okay, I'm multiplying that by 8.5, and that gives me 38.25 rounds right here. And that is how many rounds I need to complete a yoke of an 8.5 inch depth. Now, of course, you can't have 0.25 of a round, so we can go up or we can go down. I'm just gonna leave it at 38 rounds. And the other thing is, we are decreasing, correct? So how many stitches do we want to decrease? How much do we want around our neckline? So I determined that to be 68 stitches because multiplied by my gauge, or actually, sorry, divided by my gauge, that would give me around 17 inches for the neckline, which is plenty to play around in case I want to do some ribbings for the neckline. Is that what it's called? And that means I have 38 rounds to work my decreases in. So I need to go from 176 down to 68 stitches. Now in a traditional raglan, you are decreasing 8 stitches total, right? Because you're increasing 2 stitches in 4 points. So now we're going to be decreasing 8 stitches total, 2 decreases in 4 points, which are here and behind. But if we do that every round, that just gives us 13 rounds, not enough for our armhole depth. And if we do that every other round, we are still at 26 inches, which is a much smaller armhole depth than I would like. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be decreasing and then working 2 rounds until I've worked 10 extra rounds, because that would take me to 36, which is much closer to 38 than 26. I hope that made sense. I'm going to be trying the sweater on after I do a couple of rounds and it's enough to, you know, actually stay on my body. I'm going to be trying it on so that you guys can see what I mean. And in the meantime, we are now approaching the next round in our sweater, which means a no decrease round. This is all the type of math that will usually go into designing a garment that I'm only doing for one size right now, but typically I would do this for 10 sizes. Okay, here we are, I've marked this as the back of my sweater, and here we are approaching the stitch marker that we put in to mark our first decrease. So this means that now we've completed that decrease round. So what we're going to start now is our 2 no decrease rounds. Remember, we're going to remove the marker and then move it up with each round so that we know where, oh my god, so that we know where our decrease was. So this was my first decrease. I'm going to replace the marker and then just keep going in extended single crochets for 2 rounds. And then it will be time to decrease again. So the other thing that I wanted to remind you about is that we are still going to be changing colors, right? So from this one, we'll be changing to the last color of our fade sweater, and that means we need to count our rows. Currently, I only have 7 rows, I believe. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. No, this is round number 8. So I currently have 8 rounds in this color, which means that when I get to round 12, we will be changing colors again. So we stop 1 stitch before the marker because we are going to do a decrease over this stitch and the marked stitch. Move the marker, and then we're going to do the second decrease. And then we're going to continue in extended single crochet until 1 stitch before the marker. And in case you're wondering, we are here. So we've already decreased, and I already have 168 stitches, and I've done my 2 rounds with no decreases. So now I'm doing a decrease round, and that will leave me with 160 stitches.
and then I'll do no decreases. Okay, so I am one stitch before the marker. Once again, I'm going to do my decrease, and then I'm going to move my marker and do my second decreases. And then I'm going to work an extended single crochet until I get to my 2 other sleeve joins. And then I will work the next 2 rounds with no decreases. And I'm going to continue in...
Yesterday I left you off with just the notes that we are going to be working our decreases, how I'm going to be working decreases, and of course reminding you that even though we're decreasing, we still need to keep count of our rounds because we are going to be changing color. Now I just realized that I need to change color in the next round, and I haven't wound up my last color, so I need to do that. But before I do that, I wanted to share that I worked out specifically the decreases that I'm going to be doing and how I'm going to be doing them in more detail to share it with you guys. We've already established that when we joined, we didn't do a decrease, so that would be round 1. I had 176 stitches. Round 2, we did decreases. I had 168 stitches. And then rounds 3 and 4, no decreases. Round 5 was a decrease round, so that's 160 stitches now. Round 6 and 7 were no decrease rounds, and round 8 is a decrease round. So you can see after that 9 and 10, which are the rounds that I'm doing now, are not decrease rounds. So for round 11, it's a decrease round, and then we keep going like that. 2 no decrease rounds, decrease, 2 no decrease, until we have until we have 96. After I've got those 96 stitches, then I will just be doing 1 round of no decreases. So I'll be decreasing every other round after I've got 96 stitches, and that will give me a total of 38 rounds, which is what I needed for my 8.5-inch raglan. So I just wanted to quickly share that with you so that we're on the same page, right? I know it can be a little confusing because technically I've just completed round 5 and I'm working on rounds 6 and 7, no decreases. But technically in terms of the color fading, it's already round 11. So I'm gonna need to change rounds. So that can be a little bit tricky if you're going by that, but I know you can do it. And we can do it together. So, right, let's go wind up that next yarn so that I can start fading. Also, please ignore how I look today. I didn't put makeup on, I comb my hair, but just wearing a tank top and a jacket. I didn't feel like getting dressed. We had plumbing issues yesterday. Our heater went kaput and our sink piping went poof, the bathroom sink, and it flooded one of the bedrooms, guest bedrooms, and the bathroom, of course. So we dealt with that. Not an excuse because today's a brand new day, but also I didn't feel like getting ready this early. I might change my mind later. But anyway, crochet.
We've got our last color wound up, so I am just joining this 5th color. Remember that we join by closing the last stitch with this 5th color. And my next stitch is a decrease because this is a decrease round. My decrease, remove the stitch marker, then replace it with that decrease right there. Or I should say on the decrease. And we're going to do a decrease in the next 2 stitches as well. Remember that this is a starting fade round, so we're working single crochets, but we also need to keep in the pattern of our raglan decreases. So that's why I'm working single crochets now, because it is the first round of our fade. So just work your single crochets, and at the shoulder points remember to do your single crochet decrease, and you will be just fine because you've been doing this for a while with me now, and I know your sweater is turning out beautifully. This is what the sweater looks like until now. The next time you see me, well, we will have a completed item, hopefully.
So the reveal, as you guys saw, the sweater's finished. I didn't really take you along for the end of the sweater because it was 10 o'clock at night and I had a sudden burst of inspiration for some little things I wanted to change. Maybe not necessary, but I think they help the sweater fit a lot better. And that is essentially the very top portion. I did less rows than I had discussed I was going to do with you guys. I instead went for a 7-inch armhole instead of a 8.5 that I think I had told you I was going to go for. And I just did like 2 rows of short row shaping right on the back. I'll give you close-ups of these.
So this is where we've joined for our sleeve, and the raglan decreases go up all this way, and then we have our neckline. Now, as I said, I did some short row shaping in the neckline, and you can see that because you can see the stitches in the front I've used in the last 2 rounds are single crochet stitches. And then we come to the side of the shoulder, you can see it stands higher, and I've done these so yes, you can see here at the sides where it's starting to grow. Then I did that short row shaping with single crochet stitches to minimize the appearance of them. But also, as I was working single crochets in the front, I continued working my extended single crochets in the back just to give the back more of a boost. And for my neckline rib, I worked my first round of the shoulders and backs with double crochets, and then the front with half double crochets.
And before I did that short row shaping, I started doing single crochets only between the collarbones and then doing extended single crochets for everything before and after the collarbone. I just wanted to add some height to the back because, as you guys know, with raglan sweaters, you tend to have them be just kind of like pulling at you in the front and then not so high in the back. So that would be a recommendation if you're a seasoned garment maker. Adding short rows is definitely a very useful tool for when you want a sweater to fit well. Now, the other thing I was going to say is that when working the reverse raglan, like we were doing it one before, one after, our seam is here. I don't know if you can kind of see that. And I don't mind that. But I was also wanting to experiment with putting the seam before the sleeves instead of before and after the sleeves, you know, just kind of like decreasing the body stitches more than the sleeve and body stitches at the same time. Just something to play around with that might give a different yoke. And of course, this is a reverse raglan. There is another way of doing top bottom up construction, and that is simply doing your circular yokes where you increase or decrease an even amount of stitches all the way around. So for example, we were working in extended single crochets, so you could choose to do extended single crochets, 4 extended single crochets, 2 decreases all the way around, you know. That would be your typical yoke sweater, circular yoke. This was a raglan yoke. I have a lot of fun with this type of construction because I just prefer the fit of it. I'm gonna stand up, my head won't be in the shot. But you can see that you don't have that weird gaping in the back. That it's not really a gaping. You can see this is not popping out like it sometimes does with the top-down sweaters. That's really a matter of preference. Me, I don't know, I get along better with bottom-up constructions. I find that they're a bit easier to adjust to your own body type. Now, for this sweater, you guys know that I walked through everything following my own measurements. So in the accompanying blog post, you will find my measurements and then instructions of multiplying your gauge per inch by your measurements so that you can get a sweater that fits you. Now, if you wanted a longer sweater, you would start with your hip measurements instead of your waist measurements, which is what I did. So that's why my sweater is a bit tight fitting. In terms of internal shaping, you guys know that there is no internal shaping of the sweater. The only decreases happen along the yoke to give us that reverse raglan yoke. And yeah, overall, I'm very happy. I didn't use up all the yarns. I had about 30 grams left of each of the colors except for this second to last color right here. This one was a sport weight yarn, so I had a little bit less of that left over, but I also think it's a bit of a cool idea to use a heavier weight yarn for your boobage area or your chest area because it gives a little more ease but also covers at the same time, if I'm making sense. But yeah, overall very happy with the fit of the sweater, and 10 out of 10 I would highly recommend. It's good stash busting. Like I said, if you wanted to bust through all your stash and you like the length of this sweater, then I would say just add more stitches, start off with a bit of a boxier garment than I chose to make here, and explore. Feel free to just have fun and tag me if you make your own version of this sweater. You can find all the measurements, all the detailed measurements at least, in the blog post that is linked down below so that you can have fun with it. And if for some reason you've missed part 1 and part 2 of this video making process, then you will also find them linked down below. Part 1 is kind of an introduction to how I started and the stitches I'm using and all that. Part 2 is the sleeves, because we also start the sleeves with a bottom-up construction to then tie into our yoke. And then part 3 is our yoke, and this is where we are now. So thank you so much for working this process together with me and just going on this little reverse raglan adventure. I hope you found this useful and fun, and I really want to know if you will make it as well. So have fun, guys, and happy crafting. Bye!